Imagine two neighbors. Both are age 62. Both have worked hard their entire lives. Both qualify for very similar Social Security benefits. One decides to file immediately. The other decides to wait. Which one made the better decision? Wouldn't life be easier if retirement decisions came with a rewind button? If you claimed Social Security too early, rewind. If you chose the wrong pension option, rewind. If you overlooked an important tax planning opportunity, rewind. If you made the wrong Medicare decision, rewind. Unfortunately, retirement doesn't work that way. Many of the most important retirement decisions become much more difficult to change once they've been made. Now, to be fair, some of these decisions can be revisited under certain circumstances, but changing them later is often more complicated, more expensive, or comes with trade-offs that could have been avoided. And that's why today I want to share 7 retirement decisions that deserve careful thought before you make them. Because while retirement may not come with a rewind button, it does give us an opportunity to prepare. Welcome back to the Financial Fast Lane. I'm Lane Martinson. Over the years, people have occasionally asked me, Lane, after helping people prepare for retirement for so many years, what is the biggest mistake you see? And I've never really liked that question because in my experience, retirement rarely goes wrong because of one big mistake. More often, it's shaped by a series of decisions that seemed perfectly reasonable at the time, but whose long-term consequences weren't fully understood until years later. One of the unexpected blessings of doing this work for more than 3 decades is that I don't just get to help people make retirement decisions. I get to see how those decisions play out over time. I see the decisions that brought confidence. I see the decisions that created unnecessary stress. And I see what people were grateful for that they did. And occasionally, I hear someone quietly say, I wish I had understood that sooner. Those conversations have taught me a great deal. Not because I have all the answers, but because experience has a way of revealing consequences that aren't always obvious in the moment. So today, I'd like to share 7 retirement decisions that, in my experience, deserve more thought than they often receive, because understanding the consequences before you decide is almost always better than wishing that you had afterwards. Let's begin with the decision almost everyone thinks about first. Retirement decision number 1. When should you claim Social Security benefits? If you've spent any time reading about retirement, you've probably noticed that everyone seems to have an opinion about when you should claim Social Security. Some people say take it as soon as you can. You might not live long enough to benefit from waiting. Others insist wait until age 70. You'll receive the largest possible monthly benefit. So who's right? And the honest answer is sometimes both and sometimes neither. Let me explain. Imagine two neighbors. Both are age 62. Both have worked hard their entire lives. Both qualify for very similar Social Security benefits. One decides to file immediately. The other decides to wait. Which one made the better decision? The truth is, you don't know, because you don't know the rest of their story. Is one of them married while the other is single? Is one in excellent health while the other is dealing with serious medical concerns? Does one have a pension while the other depends almost entirely on Social Security? Do they have significant retirement savings? Are they still working? How important is maximizing income for a surviving spouse? Those questions matter. One thing I've learned is that people could benefit from better questions. For example, instead of asking, what's the best age to claim Social Security, I encourage people to ask, given my circumstances, what claiming strategy makes the most sense for me and why? Well, that is a very different question, because Social Security isn't a contest to see who can wait the longest, and it isn't a race to collect benefits as early as possible. It is a decision that should support the retirement that you're trying to create. I encourage people to slow down before making this decision. Don't let friends make it for you. Don't let the internet headlines make it for you. And don't assume that the most popular strategy is automatically the best strategy for you. Make the decision that's right for your circumstances, because once you've claimed your benefit, your options become much more limited. Retirement decision number 2. When should you retire? One of my favorite questions to ask someone who tells me that they're thinking about retiring is, why now? Sometimes they smile and say, I'm ready. Other times they laugh and say, my boss is making that decision for me. And occasionally they pause because they aren't really sure. The truth is, deciding when to retire is about much more than choosing the date on a calendar. I've met people who retired at 62 and never looked back. I've also met people who worked well into their 70s because they genuinely loved what they did. Neither one is automatically right. Retirement isn't a reward for reaching a certain birthday. It's a major life transition. And in my experience, one extra year of work can sometimes make a remarkable difference. One additional year can strengthen a retirement plan far more than people expect. But I've also met people who waited too long. They kept saying, just one more year. Then life changed, a health issue, a spouse illness, an aging parent who suddenly needed care. The goal isn't to retire as early as possible or as late as possible. The goal is to retire at a time that makes sense for your life. When you leave your job, how will you replace your paycheck? Will your retirement income support the lifestyle that you want? Will it keep up with inflation? Will it provide flexibility? Will it continue if one spouse passes away? Those are the questions worth answering before choosing a retirement date. Retirement decision number 3. Which pension options should you choose? Now, if you're fortunate enough to have a pension, this may be one of the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make. Most pensions are taxed as ordinary income. And once the income stream has started, you have lost tax planning flexibility. Pension income survivor options and lump sum options should be very carefully evaluated. One thing I encourage people to avoid is making this decision based on a coworker that chose a certain option. Your coworker doesn't have your family, your health, your investments, or your tax situation, or your retirement goals. Take the time to understand every option before signing the paperwork, because once that decision has been made, your choices often become much more limited and usually irreversible. Retirement decision number 4. Which Medicare coverage should you choose? You have enrollment deadlines, coverage choices, prescription drug decisions, and one of the biggest decisions of all, should you choose original Medicare with a Medigap policy, or should you choose a Medicare Advantage plan? Now, I've met with people who are very happy with the decisions they've made. I've also met people who later realized that they didn't fully understand the trade-offs. The point isn't that one option is always better. The point is that this is another decision worth slowing down and understanding before you commit. Ask questions, understand your options, and don't let a television commercial make this decision for you. Retirement decision number 5, when should we pay the taxes? Now, everybody cares about taxes, but many people assume that taxes are simply something that happens to them. While we may not control whether we pay taxes, we often have more influence over when we pay and at what rate we pay than people realize. Some years, your taxable income is relatively low. Other years is much higher. Many retirees have several years between retirement and required minimum distributions. Those years can create planning opportunities that may never come again. Now, that's why Roth conversions have become such an important retirement planning strategy for many people. Not because they're always the right answer, but because timing matters. Now, I've seen people save substantial amounts of lifetime taxes because they recognized an opportunity while it existed. I've also met people who later told me, I wish someone had explained that to me before my required minimum distributions began. Once those years are gone, they're gone. And that's why I encourage people to think about taxes proactively rather than reactively. Sometimes paying a little more tax today can result in paying much less over the course of retirement. Retirement decision number 6, how will you turn your savings into retirement income? If you've watched this channel for very long, you've probably heard me say, retirement isn't about your assets, it's about your income. Of course, assets matter, but during your working years, your paycheck does most of the heavy lifting. Every 2 weeks, another paycheck arrives. Retirement changes that. Now you become responsible for creating your own paycheck. In my experience, that's one of the biggest mental shifts that people face. Most people spend decades learning how to accumulate wealth, Very few spend time learning how to distribute it. Those are completely different skills. And I've met with people with modest savings who enjoyed a remarkably confident retirement. But also, I've met with people who, with several $1,000,000, who are constantly worried about running out of money. The difference usually wasn't the size of the portfolio. It was the confidence they had in their income plan. One question I often ask is, where will next month's check come from? And then I ask, what about the month after that? And finally, what happens if the market declines significantly? Those questions often change the conversation. Generating retirement income isn't simply withdrawing money from an investment account. It's deciding which account to draw from and when to draw it and how much to withdraw. And how those decisions affect your taxes and long-term financial security, right? So I've often said, everyone can retire. The real question is, at what income? Your retirement lifestyle isn't determined by the size of your nest egg. It's determined by the income that nest egg can reliably produce. And that is a very different conversation. Retirement decision number 7. How do you want to take care of the people you love? Now, if there's one retirement decision that people tend to postpone, it's this one. Not because they don't care, usually because life gets busy, or because it's just uncomfortable to think about. But after many years, I've learned something. The best estate plans aren't really about money. They're about people. They're about making life a little bit easier for the people that you'll someday leave behind. Now, I've sat with surviving spouses who are incredibly grateful that their husband or wife had taken the time to organize everything. The beneficiary designations were current. The legal documents were in place. There was a plan. I've also seen the opposite. Outdated beneficiary forms, no powers of attorney, no healthcare directives. Children trying to figure out what mom and dad had intended. One of the greatest gifts that you can leave your family isn't necessarily a larger inheritance. It's greater clarity. It's knowing your wishes. It's making important decisions while you're still able to make them. It's leaving behind organization instead of confusion, peace instead of uncertainty. And that's why I encourage people to not think of estate planning as preparing for the end of life. Think of it as taking care of the people you love, because that's really what it's about. As we've walked through these 7 retirement decisions today, I hope you've noticed something. None of them require you to be perfect. None of them have the exact same answer for everyone. In fact, many of these decisions have more than one good option. The important thing is in understanding the consequences before you decide. Because while retirement doesn't come with a rewind button, it does give you the opportunity to prepare, to slow down, to ask good questions, to seek wise counsel, and to make thoughtful decisions before they become much more difficult to change. Your future self and your family will thank you. If today's video encouraged you to pause before making one of these important retirement decisions, then it was time well spent. Thank you so much for watching. And if you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing to the Financial Fast Lane. And in this video here, I go through a case study of a 62-year-old with $750,000 saved and is wondering if it is enough to retire. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Financial Fast Lane.